Hi, Wendy here, visiting with you from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I am standing in the Museum of New Art, also called MONA, where they are hosting a magnificent exhibition called George Rodrigue, Painting for Myself. Today, I wanted to spotlight this really spectacular early Rodrigue painting called Miss July 4th of Carencro, Louisiana. You might wonder, why would a painting like this be in an exhibition called George Rodrigue Painting for Myself up in New Hampshire? This is obviously the Cajuns. It's Carencro, Louisiana. Well, I'm gonna tell you, there is a tie to this area. In 1976, George Rodrigue had an exhibition at the Arvist Gallery in Boston, Massachusetts. And it was all paintings from his Cajun series, most of them featured in this book, The Cajuns of George Rodrigue, which was published in 1976 by Oxmoor House. And in fact, this painting right here is featured in this book and was in that exhibition. At that exhibition, George was very honored because U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy introduced him. And to his shock, when Senator Kennedy got up there in front and the crowd, there was a full crowd of people there, and George and all his Cajun paintings, and Senator Kennedy says, "I'd like to introduce the great Louisiana Cajun artist, George Rodrigue." And George is going, "Cajun, Cajun." I heard this story from him many times. He had no idea what he was talking about. What's a Cajun? That's right. This is before Tabasco. This is before black and redfish. People just didn't know Cajun outside of the area. And yet, here was a whole exhibition of Cajun paintings. Well, why? Because of this book. This book, published that same year of 1976, is the first national publication on the Cajun culture. It is also the first bilingual book ever published in the United States. It is written in English and in French, all written by George himself. It was one of the top 10, it made the top 10 Southern books list for 1976, and it was also chosen as the favorite book that year of the National Endowment for the Arts, which showed it to First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who shared it with her husband, President Jimmy Carter, and they chose it as an official gift of state during the Carter White House. That's how George got all this attention outside of Louisiana, and that's how he came to have this exhibition here in New England. This painting sold at that exhibition in 1976. So did almost every painting in that show. It was George's biggest show to date. Now, George reflected on that the rest of his life. It was a big lesson for him. Here were all these Cajun paintings that sold to collectors who were so unfamiliar with South Louisiana, with the Cajun culture, with his culture, that they didn't even know the word. He always said that taught him that it wasn't so much what he painted, but how he painted that resonates with his collectors. It was a big lesson. So here we have Miss July 4th, Carencro, in this exhibition. Again, this show is called Painting for Myself, so it is full of paintings that have never been on the market, paintings that George did for our home, and some that he did for really special philanthropic causes. So why is this here? Well, I've just told you, because I couldn't resist including it with that tie-in. But how did I get my hands on it? Well, just a couple of years ago, this was part of an estate in Boston at an auction house here. It came up for sale through the auction. And I had this situation of the last gift George ever gave me, a car, a beautiful car that I had hardly driven. I mean, it only had a few thousand miles on it. I had a cover on it. I just couldn't part with it because it was the last gift he gave me. Let's just say the difference was just a couple $100. I think it was a good trade, and I think George would be pleased. All the quintessential Rodrigue elements are here, of course. You have to remember, this was painted in 1971, which is the same year that George painted his aioli dinner. I spotlighted that recently. It hangs at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art in another film, if you want to know more about that one. This was painted that exact same year, the first year he started painting people, right? His figures glowing like ghosts. not lit by the sunlight, but lit by an inner light, glowing with the Cajun culture from the inside out, and very much shaped, right, by the landscape, so that they are locked in and cannot move, giving the impression that they have been cut out of Canada and pasted onto South Louisiana. Lots more history on that in the Aioli dinner video, so I won't go into all of that now, but please enjoy. I mean, how incredible. Women, right, as soldiers and as Americans, very proud to be American, even as they embrace their Cajun culture, painted at a time when women could not be soldiers, right, in 71, and by a young man in his 20s who embraced symbolism, who embraced the feelings of South Louisiana, who embraced equality for women, who embraced Americana, who thought deeply, loved deeply, and truly, truly, truly loved his home, Louisiana, and his culture, the Cajun people.